Welcome back. Episode 9 of Griddyiron Gang. What we have for you today is a Monday night football review between the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos. After that, we're going to touch on some of the weekend games coming up, Thursday night football, Sunday, and 2 Monday night games as well. But before we get to all that, man, looks like we're going to both have to eat some crow. I'll take my medium rare with hot sauce. What do you want, some mayonnaise, or what do you want with yours, man?
Shoot.
Seahawks definitely proved us both wrong. Got the win at home and ruined Russell's homecoming. How'd you feel about that game last night?
Well, number one, I was kind of at first surprised by all the boos he was getting to start the game. But, yeah, I said last pod that I had Denver winning by at least 17. That was, man, talk about not seeing that one coming. You got to tip your hats to Seattle and especially Geno Smith. He came out there, looked like a true leader from jump. I wouldn't say he had the flashiest stats on paper, but he did what you want them to. He did what they want him to do going forward. Like, number one, just from a leadership standpoint, he was playing with the most emotion in that game, picking his teammates up, but he just looked way more solid. I've been kind of dogging him, and I'm kind of like,
you ain't the only one
looking at. It's obviously only one game, but shoot. Besides the offensive side, the most impressive part was the defensive side. They were flying around the ball, and feel bad for Jamal Adams tearing his quad. I would assume that's a lengthy.
That's probably for the season, I would assume.
Probably, a very lengthy timetable of recovery. But then you go to the Denver side of the ball, and they just look like so out of whack. They look like the one team for sure that needed to play a few series in the preseason with their starters to gel some more. Russell didn't look like Russell.
No.
Nathaniel Hackett, like I said to you earlier, looks like he might be in over his head. Coming from Green Bay, he was the offensive coordinator, but what did he really do over there? You have LaFleur calling the plays. You have Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't really need to be coached or told what to do.
Nor does he want either of those things.
So when you look at it from that standpoint, take a look at the end of the game. They got to 4th and 5. There was 50 seconds still on the clock. They burned 30 seconds just to call a timeout. And you had 2 timeouts left. 50 seconds, timeout.
That was some Mike McCarthy work right there.
Regroup, come together, talk about what you want to do, and send your $250 million quarterback out there to convert on 4th down. You could have got closer for a field goal, and I'm going to guess that McManus hits the game-winning field goal if they're closer. 64 yards, second longest field goal try in NFL history, or what would be the second longest in NFL history. If he makes it, that is, look, it's not the way you want to start as a Denver Bronco.
It's not, man.
That was the NFL sets you up, primetime Monday night game for Russell to go home and try and get a W, start the season off right. And you could just tell Russell was dejected after that game. He was shrugging it off like, okay, it's one game, but you could tell he wanted that one.
That's not just another game.
No, he wanted to go out there, especially with the boos at the beginning of the game. Like, he wanted to show them, like, I brought us so much success while I was here in Seattle. I felt like you guys kind of did me wrong in some aspects, and now I'm on Denver's side, and we're going to take it to you. Which, you look at it on paper, Denver is the much more talented team. And I think that it was just I think it's a wake-up call for everyone around the NFL when it comes to the Broncos. I think there's still It's obviously one game. I keep saying that about every game this week, but Denver looks like the weakest team in that division for sure.
Kind of what we expected. Denver or the Raiders, either way, both teams have their question marks. Although Russ did have 340 passing yards, it was a lot of dink and dunk.
A lot of dink and dunk.
A lot of dink and dunk. I think the running back was their leading receiver with 11 catches or something like that. On the other side, Geno looked like he was the motherfucking Pro Bowler and Hall of Famer.
Right. I know.
He stood in there strong. He was delivering it. He had a rocket arm. He was accurate. He was confident how he was throwing it. His receivers were going up there and making some plays too.
For sure.
I mean, his numbers weren't great, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he looked like he was in command of that offense, and I think they made the right decision with him over Drew Lock.
For sure. Look at the game, how it turned out. I don't think Drew Lock goes. I think he shits the bed if he's in there. I mean,
that's a chance.
I think
that's for sure a chance.
I think if he starts that game and they went with him as their starter, it's a good possibility that halfway through that game they pull him for Geno anyways.
Mm-hmm. Jeez, that's tough. First game.
Because you think about it, you got both guys in Drew Lock, Russell Wilson, switching teams.
Right.
He would have folded under that pressure, and I truly believe that. So, but I will say Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton looked very, very good.
They did.
Jeudy looked fast as hell out there.
Yes, he did.
I think you need to give Javonte Williams a lot more touches than just, what was it, like 7 or something like that?
7 rushes, yeah.
You got to give him a lot more than that because he's a hell of a ball carrier. But then you go back to the Seattle side, Rashad Penny, he stays healthy. He looks like a force.
He looked great.
He looks really good. He's very, very decisive with his cuts. I mean, north and south.
Had a little burst to him.
Yep, for sure. I think this has to be a early wake up call for Denver if they want to get back on the right track. It definitely told me though that they still got a lot of time to gel together as a unit. Bradley Chubb, he did what he was expected to do, making plays all over the field. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was kind of for me it was just like didn't see that one coming.
I don't think anybody saw that one coming. Not like that, anyways.
No, if we were doing this, yesterday when we were recording, and you asked me my surprise game of the week, that would have been
it for sure. Yeah, that would have been right up there for me too. Because Denver's a team we expect playoffs for sure. Super Bowl contenders, Seahawks, rebuild mode. So, hey, week 1 is crazy. We talked about it. Anything can happen. Everybody's juiced up. Everybody had all summer the game plan.
Yep.
And if there's anybody that has the game plan against Russ, it's going to be Seattle. So,
and credit to Pete Carroll because he knew what this game meant. And it kind of just showed like it's kind of one of those things where is coach or player right?
Well, I will say Disley had a touchdown on a broken play, and then Denver did fumble twice inside the 5. So.
Right. I was going to say that too. 3 trips inside the 5, and you only get 3 points out of it. That's so unacceptable in the NFL.
It could have been a 2-touchdown game like you predicted. So.
Yeah, it definitely could have. And I think the game was, ultimately when you look back at the game and you rewatch it, that was Denver's game for the taking. Mm-hmm. They just let it slip through their hands and didn't play to their potential.
I agree. And if I'm a Denver fan, part of that is encouraging because Russ on paper looked good. And if you factor in the fact that we turned the ball over inside the 5.
Yeah.
Came away with 3 points when we could have had 21.
Yep. And games like this in the NFL happen where you don't see them coming. For a bottom feeder team to beat a team that has high expectations. So this is not out of the realm of normalcy because it does happen. But you also look at Denver's schedule, and it's pretty soft besides in the division.
Right.
So you have to feel confident going forward as a fan and as a player and coach in that system and that organization. I mean, you still have to have confidence that you can get to the playoffs this year.
Sticking with the division, we'll move on to the Thursday night game. The Chargers will take on the Chiefs and probably most people's eyes the game of the week. Both teams coming off victories in week 1. Herbert and Mahomes looking like 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league. Throw Josh Allen in there too. What do you expect from this game?
Fireworks.
Oh yeah, I do too.
Absolutely fireworks. But when it's all said and done, with the Chiefs at home, I got to give them the edge in this one. I think it's going to be a battle down to the wire. But what the Chiefs showed me this past week one, like, I mean, they're for real still. They're here to stay. And, you know, the only question is, you know, can Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa shut that offense down? I mean, I think the difference between the Raiders and the Chiefs is Mahomes can play backyard football, be on the move a lot more than Carr can. And so it's going to be a little tougher for them to get to him, but they can definitely still pressure him. But at the end of the day, I got to give my W to Mahomes over Herbert still. So that's the way I'm leaning.
I think until Herbert proves otherwise, you have to go that way now. You did mention Mack and Bosa. They combined for 5 sacks against the Raiders. The difference between the Raiders and Kansas City, outside of Mahomes being able to play playground quarterback, is that offensive line, and the Raiders have a terrible one.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too. I was going to say that, too. Like, when you mentioned last week during our pick segment is you were very nervous and skeptical of that offensive line, and it definitely showed up that game, I think. But for them to still be in that game against the Chargers is a testament to that team. But they do have heavy question marks around that offensive line, and that's not going anywhere all season long. So that is a big difference. That the Chiefs do have a better offensive line.
Another AFC game. Miami is going to head to the Northeast and face yours truly, the Baltimore Ravens, and they'll take their first loss of the season, in my opinion. This is going to be a real test for Tua. The numbers on paper look great, but I'm not a paper guy. I'm an eyes guy, and he missed a lot of throws out there, but similar to Lamar Jackson in some ways, hopping some passes, overthrowing some guys, and just making bad decisions overall. But no turnovers for Tua week 1. I think that'll change week 2. Our defense was hawking against the Jets. I think it's going to be able to fly around against this Miami offense, who is fast, so we're going to have to stay solid, going to have to stay disciplined. And losing one of our DBs for the season is going to hurt, especially against this team right here. But I'm going to go ahead and say Baltimore in a close one at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think Baltimore might even beat them by about 10 points. I think that they're just the better team. They have question marks still, but they're going to be the more disciplined team for sure. I think Tyreek doesn't have a big game, which ultimately hurts them. And I still think that they're still getting things figured out over there with a new coach, new system. So, and to play the Ravens, a tough team in week 2 on the road, I don't think it bodes well for them. So I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one.
Washington at Detroit.
Man, this is, like I told you before we hopped on here, I read that it was, it's the first time in 24 games that the Lions are favored in a game. And it's only by 2.5, I think. But, yeah, I'm going to roll with the Lions in this one. I think that they get it done. I think that they got a pretty good offensive line that can handle that front 7 in Washington. I mean, DeAndre Swift, very solid back. Their offense is making plays. They look pretty explosive for the most part, but I think that Wentz ultimately has a couple miscues this game, and not saying that's the reason that I'm not saying that he hands the game to the Lions, but I think the Lions just ultimately go out there and take it, and I have them by a touchdown.
So like you mentioned, we talked about this a little earlier before the show, but you said Washington has a better roster, and you believe Carson Wentz was a better quarterback slightly over Jared Goff.
Right.
With both of those things still holding true, I assume you're still taking Detroit in a touchdown.
For sure. I do think that on paper, you look at it and you say Washington is definitely the better team. Maybe it's slightly, maybe it's a little more than slightly, and I have Wentz as this on a slight edge over Goff as at a quarterback position. But when I'm thinking about them going to Detroit and how just watching it on TV even last week, how hostile of an environment, how loud Ford Field was. I mean, that team, Detroit's not going anywhere. They're going to be in a lot, if not most of their games. And this is one of those games that I think Detroit comes out on top. I just think that they have so much grit to them and toughness that I don't think that Washington necessarily has what's the word?
Identity, personality.
Yeah, personality, identity. Yeah, I don't think they have it like what the Detroit Lions do.
I agree with you. I think Detroit's going to win this game. That's why I tried to get you on Washington, because I feel like just even if it's close, the way that you're talking about Detroit, they have something that Washington I don't believe has, but it comes down to that quarterback at the end still.
But is this the first game of the season where Wentz has critical mistakes that haunt them? Because, I mean, he has those games. And, I don't see him being that great of a quarterback on the road. Not saying that, Detroit and going to Ford Field is scaring anybody, but it's a new day and new age in Detroit. Like, Dan Campbell has that team turning around. It might not be their year, but they're on the upswing. And I think that, Washington's going to make plays out there. There's no doubt about that. But Detroit put up 35 points against a solid Philly team. Philly's much better than Washington. So if I'm a betting man, I'm taking that 2.5 point spread and putting it on Detroit.
Fair enough. Carolina traveling to New York to face the Giants. What you think about this one?
This is a tougher one for me. Part of me, last week I got burned by the Giants. But Carolina going on the road in New York, not saying it's the most hostile environment, but it's still the first road game of the year for Carolina. I did see some positive things out of them against Cleveland, but I think that New York's defense is more solid, especially against Carolina's offensive line, where I think they're gonna pressure Baker a lot. They might not have Thibodeau back yet, but they still have some solid pieces out there on the defensive side.
They won't.
But he was out last week too.
Right.
So
I just want to see him versus Cross.
Yeah, that would be a good matchup, especially two rookies going at it. But I think, man, this is a tougher one for me. I'm going back and forth, but ultimately I think that the Giants at home pulled this one out.
They won you over last week, huh? Another game that's interesting. An interesting pick for you, because I know you think Baker's a better quarterback.
I do. But also, like Shannon Sharp said today on Undisputed, which I don't watch much of, but I did catch it today. He said, if Baker was such a much better quarterback than Daniel Jones, then he should be favored in this game. And the Detroit, and not Detroit, but New York Giants are the favorites in this one.
That's fair, but Carolina was also ranked the 32nd roster before Baker got there, which I disagreed with, but that's what they were.
Yeah, and I mean,
so they shouldn't be favored in any game.
Nah, but the
fact that they're even in contention, I mean, I think that says a lot about Baker.
No, and this is another one I think is going to be a close game, but I do ultimately think that somehow, some way, the Giants start 2-0, and Carolina unfortunately starts 0-2.
There's going to be two teams that I think start 2-0 that are going to be unbelievable. Giants are one of them. Indianapolis traveling to Jacksonville. What you think? A division game? Two in a row for Jacksonville.
Yeah,
and Indy.
This is one I'm gonna say. Who's at home at this game?
Jacksonville.
Okay. So it might be a little more interesting than what if it were at Indianapolis, but I think Jonathan Taylor's too much for this Jacksonville defense. I think that Indy wins this one. And it won't be, a barn burner like it was with Houston. I think that Indy's going to clean up some things, and they'll win, by probably 10, 14 points.
I agree. I think Indianapolis is going to be too much for this team. The defense is solid. They're coming off a tie against the division team, and I think they're going to want to prove that they are the head of this division. Jacksonville, though, played well, and we mentioned Washington earlier. I think Jacksonville was in position to win that game. Sort of like Denver. Etienne made a couple bonehead plays that cost him that game. So I think this is going to be closer than a lot of people expect. The coaching change in Jacksonville has proven to be good so far. I mean, the team looked a lot better in week 1 than they did last year. So kind of picking up where they left off last year. I think that team was headed in the right direction as well. New York Jets heading to Cleveland. This is going to be a stinker.
Yeah, this is going to be a bad game, but one that I won't be tuning into. But I will say I have the confidence in the Browns this week that they will pull this off. When you think Flacco at quarterback, it's ugly. And then their offensive line isn't doing much. I mean, you're down your top 2 left tackles. One you just signed after Mekhi Benton went down and Dwayne Brown. There's some positive things going on in New York with the Jets, but they're still not there yet. And even though that defense is showing signs of improvement and it's getting to the place where it wants to be, I think Jacoby has a much better game this week, and that Myles Garrett's going to go off even more this week. This one, it's going to be an ugly game, but plus I don't think the Jets have the defense just yet to stop a duo of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb.
Not quite, but I don't think Brissett's going to do a damn thing in this game because I do think that secondary is solid in New York. However, Cleveland has too much on defense for Joe Flacco to do anything. I think Myles Garrett's going to have a field day like you mentioned, especially with some of those offensive linemen being down, especially on the edge. This is a team that scares me, man. The defense is going to keep them in a lot of games, and Jacoby Brissett is just good enough to not lose any of them.
Yeah, and I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he doesn't throw towards Sauce Gardner, but at the same time, I think people are still sleeping on Amari Cooper a little too much. I think he still has the juice left. He's just not that elite receiver, but he's that security blanket, that comfort for Jacoby to get things going. And when you have such a solid running back duo in Hunt and Chubb, and it's so proficient in the run game, even though the Jets secondary is more than capable of shutting Brissett down, they're going to leave some things open for him to get done.
Like you mentioned, that combination of Chubb and Hunt along with that defense, I mean, that's one of the best combinations for winning teams right there if the quarterback can just be even keel. Tampa Bay at New Orleans, another division game. Second for New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the Saints, they're a sneaky team for the playoffs. I'm not super high on them like some people are, but because I'm just not sold on Jameis yet. And there were some things that they left to be desired in that game against Atlanta this past week.
For sure.
So I think that, they might play Tampa Bay tough because they always do. But I do think that Tom Brady gets it done. I just think especially that Tampa defense looks so good that I just don't see Jameis having his way with them.
Tampa's defense looked phenomenal, but we don't expect a lot from Dallas's offense, and now with that guy, we for sure don't expect anything anymore. New Orleans has had Tom's number since he got there, down there in Tampa Bay. This is going to be one of those games that's very interesting. If Dennis Allen is going to be able to go blow for blow with Tom Brady and that staff over there. On paper, the teams are just as talented. I mean, I don't think there's a big discrepancy either way, but I think that's what it's going to come down to. Jameis Winston is a guy I trust in enough to win this game. Maybe not win a Super Bowl or get his team to the playoffs, but for a game like this, I think he's built for it. He definitely has the talent, definitely has the skill for it, definitely has the weapons. Michael Thomas came back from injury, 2 touchdowns. Kamara had a slow game. That'll probably pick up. But this Bucs defense, they have an answer for anything you're going to throw at them offensively. So it's going to be a tough game for sure.
So is that a Saints pick there?
I'm gonna do it, man.
You got to give a solidified answer.
I gotta give you. I don't think I give you one for Cleveland either, but I did. New Orleans, yeah, for sure. New Orleans.
Okay. All right. So we got our first disagreement, I think.
Okay, we got one.
All right.
I like it. New England at Pittsburgh. We won't disagree on this one, although
you might be surprised.
I might be surprised. I was gonna say that. Go ahead, take it away.
yes, you got TJ Watt out, but I think I trust Mike Tomlin right now at this point more than I do Belichick. And I'm saying he's going to have these Steelers ready to go. Because I think in Tomlin's eyes, and maybe even in Belichick's eyes, but I think when you got two of the greatest coaches ever going up head to head, it's a chess match. And both of them want to prove something. And I just like Tomlin more than I like Belichick. So at the end of the day, I'm going to take Trubisky and take that Pittsburgh team. I think, I don't know the severity of Mac Jones' back or anything, but I think there's some things going on in New England that people weren't expecting, and I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I don't think that they're going to do much damage this year. So I'm rolling with black and yellow.
I'm not surprised. There's no crack in the back of Mac, but there's no pop in this offense either. And there might be a snap in the front office. Pittsburgh, I think, is going to run away with this game. Najee Harris did hurt his foot, but I know in the last episode I said he might be out a while. He said he's going to play this weekend. Now, we don't know the status on TJ Watt. Last I heard, if he decides to get surgery, it's for the season. If not, he'll be out 2 months or so. And I know Hayward went out in that game as well, so I don't know what his status is, but your three best players went out week 1, which is never something you want to deal with. But what we're seeing in New England is something we have not seen before since Belichick has been there.
No.
And I don't trust anything I see going on over there or hear anything coming out of there. So I'm going to have to go Pittsburgh big in this game, honestly. I trust Trubisky over that defense who lost Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, and a lot of talent over the past few years. So it's going to be ugly, I think, especially at home. You're feeling great coming off a high beat in Cincinnati. So
I mean, and think about it. Trubisky ain't the most exciting quarterback, but he gets the job done. He gets the ball to his receivers, and guess what? You got Deontay Johnson, Claypool, Freiermuth. You got George Pickens. Shoot, I'm not even scared if Najee's out of this game.
They got enough weapons to do it for sure. That's no question.
So I think, and you know what? Even with TJ Watt out, that defense is still super solid. Where it's Mike Tomlin's defense. That's his baby. Like they're gonna put some pressure and get to Mac Jones, I think. And I think they have a couple interceptions this game.
Such a huge loss for TJ Watt not to be there, but all those guys fly around and play in this system. Under Mike Tomlin, has there ever been a bad defense under that guy? I mean,
Man.
We say a lot about TJ Watt, but Minka Fitzpatrick at the safety position at 14 tackles and a pick 6.
Yep.
I mean, that's just what this guy brings to the table, and a mastermind on the defensive side of the ball. Getting to the noon games or the afternoon games, we have Atlanta on the road taking on a team who hopes to bounce back, the Los Angeles Rams. How you feel about this one? And who is Todd Gurley cheering for?
Oh man, shoot. If being retired, I don't know. You might go for your hometown team or whatever, but I don't know. His best years came with the Rams, so I'm gonna roll with the Rams. I think LA has a big bounce back this week. I'm expecting more firepower from them on offense. I think Aaron Donald's gonna have a huge game this week, and yeah, they win. This will be my 17-point pick this week.
Okay. Damn, hopefully you didn't jinx these guys. I agree with your last point, though. Aaron Donald is going to have a big week. He was beating a lot of those single blocks that he got, but, I mean, they were getting rid of the ball quick out there in Buffalo, so it was tough when he wasn't getting doubled to get to the quarterback. Atlanta, do they have anybody to block him?
I don't think so. And you know what? This is it's going to be a whole complete team game from the Rams this week.
Jalen Ramsey, they're dogging him right now.
The way they got smacked around first game of the year against the Bills, they still believe that, they see themselves as defending champions. They think they can do it again. They're going to have a point to prove this week, and it's going to be an ugly game for the Falcons and Mariota, I think.
Do you think we're going to see 20 targets to Cooper Kupp, or do you think we're going to spread it a little around?
I think you're going to spread it a little more around and then get more guys involved. I mean, shoot, you got Allen Robinson, who had like 2 or 3 targets last game. Unacceptable. You brought him there for a reason. Mm-hmm. I mean, even getting your tight end involved in Higbee. Shoot, but you also got to look at Cam Akers. His coach was calling him out after the game. He had 3 rushes and no yards.
Was that on him?
You expect, I don't know. You expect more out of him. But you gotta establish a little bit of that run game with that offense because people know you're gonna pass the ball and air it out.
That defense was just nasty on Thursday night.
I think Ramsey and Donald are gonna have big games this week, and yeah, I don't think it's gonna be pretty for Atlanta, and that's just how I feel. So
another team I don't think it'll be pretty for, Dallas, hosting Cincinnati this week. Lost their left tackle in the offseason. Just lost their quarterback for probably 2 months. What do you think about this one?
Burrow's gonna dice him up. End of story. Let's move on to the next one.
I agree.
Put a fork in Dallas. They're done. They're absolutely done. Skip Bayless, that pick's for you.
There you go, Skip. We'll at you on that one. Arizona at Las Vegas, a battle in the desert. 2 teams coming off losses. A lot of turnovers for the Vegas Raiders in week 1. 3 turnovers for Derek Carr. Cardinals, man, they didn't look like a good team at all week 1. Maybe all that dysfunction in the offseason is really getting to them. What do you think about this one?
I think this has the potential to be maybe another shootout if Arizona can bounce back. But Las Vegas going back home opener, I don't see it happening. I think that they're going to carve up the Cardinals just like would they play?
Chiefs,
just like they did. Maybe not to the extent that Mahomes did, but it's going to be pretty close. I think this will be another 2-score game at least. And I mean, the only thing I have to say is Derek Carr needs to spread it around a little more, get more people involved, and not just be steadfast on Devontae Adams the whole game.
Maybe Devontae's got something on these guys, man. And Rodgers, they're like, hey.
I mean, it's hard not to go to him when he gets open most of the time. I mean, he's dynamic with the ball in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a reason he's been the best receiver in the game for a while. So, I mean, I know, and especially with the connection coming from college with both of them. But I mean, you still got Waller, you still got Renfro. Hey, just a little bit. I'm not saying you have to spread it around too much, but just a little bit more to keep the defense more off balance. Because if you start keying on Devontae, I mean, look back at the 49ers Packers tape last playoff game they had. All you got to do is watch the film, do what the Niners do against Devontae, take him away, and Aaron couldn't get anything going. So I don't want to see that happen with the Raiders and Carr and Adams, you know. So I did when it was the Packers, but I don't want to see that anymore.
Speaking of Devontae, I got Vegas in that game, by the way. Chicago is on the road to take on Green Bay in their home opener after getting stomped out week 1 by Minnesota. Chicago surprisingly won on the road at San Francisco, or at home, actually, in the monsoon. But now they're on the road in Green Bay. How do you think this one's going to go?
Green Bay's home opener, I think it's a bounce-back game for them.
Discount double check?
I'm still not sure how it's going to look because I don't know what those receivers bring to the table. But I expect you get Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon more involved in the game plan. That defense is still solid. So I think this is I'm not going to say a big bounce-back game, but it's definitely a bounce-back game where they kind of quiet some doubters. And I think Justin Fields is not going to have too much of a better game.
No, to your Justin Fields point, 2 defenses you have to open the season against, San Francisco and then Green Bay. Pretty tough. He got 1. This one I think is going to be closer than we expect, and you could potentially get 2. Green Bay looked pretty down week 1, but we're not going to overreact. Chicago looked very down, but they ended up pulling it out against a very good team in San Francisco, who also has their own questions, especially at quarterback. But even though I think it's going to be close, I think Green Bay does bounce back and take this one by about 6 points or so.
Yeah, I mean, don't put it past Aaron to blow them out because he owns them, as he would say.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, plus there's something about Lambeau when they play at home. It's especially in the regular season that it's an electric place to play. I mean, those are some rowdy fans out there in Green Bay. What else do you expect from Wisconsin people who just sit around, drink beer, and eat cheese? So, I mean, shoot.
Wow.
But Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see the Bears beat them. I mean, I still don't like the Bears either. That's one of our rivals, but I'd much rather see the Bears win than the Packers win. But I still got the Packers in this. I mean, I can't be oblivious to what history has said. You know what I'm saying? Like, Aaron does have a tendency to own the Bears, and he's gonna have some. He's gonna wanna shut some people up this week. That's just who he is as a person.
Yes, indeed. I skipped ahead. That was the Sunday night football game. 2 more games at 4:00, 3:00 our time. Seattle on the road at San Fran. And I mentioned there's 2 teams that I think we're going to be surprised that are 2-0. The Giants and Seahawks are the other one.
Okay. Yeah, I know I said to you earlier that I have Seattle, and I was going back and forth with this throughout the day. I don't... Man. Yeah. You're going to have to give me Seattle in this one. I think this is probably one of the more closer games in the week.
This is one of the harder ones to call. I just don't believe or see anything in Trey Lance that I like outside of his running ability.
And that's the thing. Him being from Minnesota, it's still not easy to hate on the guy. Like, I don't care that you're from here, that you're a hometown kid. When you go out there, you don't look like a leader. You don't look comfortable throwing the football. You're not very accurate. You barely look good running the football. Like, he's almost got this like monotone facial expression every time you look at him. Mm-hmm. Like he's a deer in headlights. And when you have a guy that you draft, what was it, 3rd overall?
3rd.
And you send a bunch of draft picks for him.
You could have had Mac. You could have had Kirk Cousins.
Like, give me... And then you're playing this rope-a-dope with Jimmy G, not wanting him. Then you sign him as a backup. There's a reason you do that. You're not sold on Trey Lance. You're starting to regret your decision sending a bunch of draft picks to draft him. Mm-hmm. I think Trey Lance ends up as one of the biggest busts in recent memory.
A lot of time to tell, but as of late, it's looking that way. I think he has a turnover in every game he's played, which we see a lot from young quarterbacks. But in this offense, you would like to see a little more production with those turnovers.
And look at it this way. How many guys have you heard this offseason or so far into the 1 week of the season we've had go out of their way to defend Trey Lance as their quarterback?
I haven't heard a single report on that.
Or saying they're super confident in him. Not one. And guess what the rumblings were before Debo re-signed? He had no confidence in Trey Lance. He didn't like him. I mean, not saying as a person, but he just doesn't. He's more comfortable with Jimmy G leading the way than Trey.
As he should be, because he had 10 touches week 1 and 8 were rushes, only 2 catches. So if I'm a receiver, how am I supposed to eat off that?
It's sad when those guys go so high in the draft just to be letdowns. I mean,
like we said, though, it's not his fault. That's bad. That's bad on the team.
Bad scouting, bad decisions from the GM and coaches.
Do play 1 game in 2 years at a lower division. I mean, how can you do that? How can you justify?
And guess what? If you don't draft him and you don't want Jimmy G as your quarterback, you would have been better off not drafting Trey, trading Jimmy, doing like a Stafford Goff deal. Mm-hmm. Because it would have shown that you just wanted to.
Now you probably got Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you would have been better off. You would have got a better deal than not being able to get rid of Jimmy G.
Right. Wrapping up this afternoon slate of games, we have Houston on the road at Denver.
This is going to be a big bounce back game for Denver, I think. I think they're still, hats off to Houston for how they battled Indianapolis. But let's be real. It's still Russell Wilson. It's still Russell Wilson. It's a young Houston defense. I think they're going to correct some things. I'm still not sold on Nathaniel Hackett as a head coach. I know they still have time to gel, but this is the bounce back game you would hoped for. Like, you'd want a team like Houston to come back with week 2 and show that you're still a team capable of going to the playoffs.
When I lost my train of thought earlier, mentioning 2 teams that we'd be surprised that are 2-0. There was 2 quarterbacks who threw for 350 yards or 300 plus yards that really had no impact. Russell's one of them. Matt Ryan was one of them. Houston plays both of them week 1 and 2. I agree with you that Denver's going to bounce back. And I agree that the game plan should look a little different and they should utilize those guys like we talked about earlier. Jerry Jeudy, definitely have to get Williams the ball. There's no reason Melvin Gordon should be having more carries than Javonte Williams.
Absolutely not.
Not at this stage of his career. No chance. Denver, I think this game's close at halftime, but Denver pulls away late and wins probably by 14, 17.
Yeah, I see that for sure. I mean, I definitely like that take. Because guess what? People are still sleeping on Davis Mills, and he's a good quarterback.
He's solid.
I think he's a great quarterback to lead that franchise. You just need to add some more pieces this upcoming offseason because they're not that far away from being a contender. Look, what was it? 2-3 years ago, they were just in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're kind of somewhat in a rebuild, but you added a good piece in Derek Stingley on the defensive side. You added
Kenyon Green,
Damian Pierce. I mean,
Robert Mitchie when he comes back next year. Those are 4 good players.
This team's going to be on the rise. So, I mean, and guess what? Lovie Smith he's still a good coach. Not the greatest coach by any means, but he's a good coach. And I think these guys are wanting to play for him. So they're going to be bad. It's kind of, I'm not going to say they're as good as the Lions, but they kind of remind me of that grit and that they're going to fight.
Houston is my shit team that I feel really good about, just like how I felt about Detroit last year. Because even though they got those 4 players we mentioned, they got a lot of guys to fill those roles that aren't star roles within the team.
Yeah.
And I mean, we expect Indy to win this division, and you were up big on that team the whole game.
For sure.
You shit the bed at the end, probably because a little bit of coaching and a little bit of talent, but you were right there.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap this up now. 2 games Monday night, Tennessee at Buffalo. This should be a wash. Like,
we don't even have to
man.
talk about Buffalo, Tennessee, because Tennessee is still a decent team, but Buffalo has so much firepower on both sides of the ball that they don't even stand a chance. I think they're going to have an answer for Derrick Henry. They're going to take away Tannehill in the passing game. Like, this is going to be the score that you would have predicted. This is a score that happened for the first game Thursday night.
The Rams game.
That you wouldn't have predicted.
Right.
And now you're predicting it.
Yeah. 31-10 or something like that.
So this is another blowout, I think. And it's not even going to be close start to finish.
From what I saw from Buffalo, we wouldn't even have to talk about a lot of Buffalo's games until they play the Chiefs. Like it was just like that for these guys. Even though they had 3 turnovers, they still look like they could have beat anybody in the league but the Chiefs very easily. I have Buffalo winning this game. I think they will have an answer for Derrick Henry. Sean McVay, like you said, mentioned Cam Akers needs to get more involved or be more productive with his touches. Well, every time I saw him get the ball, that defensive line was breaking through there.
Yeah, and that is a good point.
Very similar to a life I used to live, so I fell for Cam Akers on that one, man. But Buffalo wins this game big, especially in their home opener. Feeling confident coming off that fucking ass whooping against the Rams. So Tennessee, I feel bad for you, but I don't, because we have beef in our own right in Baltimore. Now, you guys know what time it is. Monday Night Football. We're going to start the game with the game of the week. Start the week with the game of the week on Thursday and finish with the game of the week Monday night. Minnesota on the road against that beautiful green in Philadelphia.
Beautiful.
What you got?
Shoot. I don't know how to. I'm not gonna dive into this like fully because you know what? There's still. I mean, I'm a Vikings fan, diehard, bleed purple and gold, but I am gonna pick the Vikings in this one. I think that what we showed this past week 1. Yes, we got some areas to clean up, especially in that run defense. Can't give up 6 yards per carry. But
Philly runs that joint.
Hey, if we can contain Jalen Hurts, I'm not scared of Miles Sanders like I am A.J. Dillon or Aaron Jones. So I think if we can contain Jalen Hurts, we can lock down the receivers more, play off each other in the back end.
This is going to be a game right here.
Hey, but A.J. Brown's not going for 10 for 155.
He might go 11 for 160.
No.
He might get in the end zone.
He might get in the end zone. He ain't putting up triple digits receiving yards.
Hey, if Pat P got burned by a rookie, AJ Brown's gonna do somebody dirty.
Yeah, but guess what?
But him and JJ will balance out.
Here's the thing. AJ Brown ain't no Justin Jefferson. He's not JJ. Never will be.
Well, here's the thing. You got two over there on AJ, and Devontae has 4.2 speed, and he's up that sideline. Dantzler.
Hey. But here we go. I mean, think about it, though. And then we'll talk about the offensive side because they had trouble stopping DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
Dalvin Cook didn't even get started week 1. 90 yards ain't even what he's meant for. He's meant for that 120 to 150 yard game. So, you know, he might go out for 152 TDs. You know, you could take away JJ. I mean, you can try to take away JJ, but then you got to account for Adam Thielen. He's not washed up yet.
Darius Slay, James Bradbury.
You got to account for KJ Osborne. He's doing
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Okay. Irv Smith Jr. Shoot, I mean,
0 points on my fantasy team.
Here's the thing. The thing is going to be
0 catches.
Offensive lines definitely got to play better. I mean, they played solid for the first game of the year. I think they're going to gel as the season goes on, but this is definitely going to be, I think, more of a tell-all for the season. If we come out of here with a W, we might just start 8-0, 7-1 before that Buffalo Bills game. And I'm saying it here right now. I'm not trying to crown us or anything like that. I'm not trying to get too high on my horse, but you can't deny we looked pretty damn explosive, pretty damn good, and we do have a fearful front seven on defense, and that makes life easier on those defensive backs.
If your offense stalled out in the second half, most people would assume it's because you had a big lead and you ran the ball. How come Dalvin only had 90 yards?
So they have a good front seven over in Green Bay. I'm not trying to take anything away from Philly, but I think people are trying to give them way too much credit for. I mean, we still have to see. I'm picking Kirk Cousins over Jalen Hurts every time. He hasn't shown enough to take that spot yet.
No, when it comes down to the quarterback, that's the easy choice.
So it's going to come down to if we can get some takeaways. I think the team that has the most takeaways probably comes out with the W. So you're looking to take that ball away, but we got to play smart football. I mean, we had to be one of the least penalized teams in week 1.
That game went by pretty quick.
So if we can be going to Philly, not have too many penalties again. I don't know. I'm not trying to be that homer that's coming on here picking the Vikings games every week because I can already tell you right now I wouldn't pick them against Buffalo by any means. But the way we're starting the season, I mean, there's a lot of season left, but guess what? Like I've said before, we have one of the more favorable schedules that we've had in a long time. There's not many teams out there that are going blow for blow for us when it comes down to the wire. Look what we did last year. We lost how many games by 3 or fewer points or on the last play of the game. There's not many defenses out there that can stop our offense, and that's just a God-given truth. I don't care who you have. I'm not scared of Darius Slay. I'm not scared of Chauncey Gardner. Not scared. I mean, shoot. Not scared of Nakobe Dean. Not scared. I mean, a little scared of Jordan Davis, but
he only played
he's got to get on the field
snaps.
And play more. So they just lost their starting defensive end for the year. Give me a reason why I should fear Philly right now.
You shouldn't fear anybody. They bleed just like you do.
But you know, I'm not in that sense, bro. But give me a reason why I should go into this game nervous about Philly.
Answer. Oh man, I think we pretty much said everything, and it just comes down to Jalen Hurts versus Kirk Cousins. And if he can get it done, That's why you should fear them. But he is a dual threat quarterback that you're going to have to worry about in the run game.
For sure.
And he will have his passing yards. A.J. Brown was a big target week 1. Devontae Smith, I think, is going to get more involved in the offense. Their tight end is way better than your tight end. And you don't like Miles Sanders, but he's a good back. Boston Scott's a good change of direction, shifty back with a lot of speed. So maybe you get these guys in space. The offensive line is great. So maybe getting to Jalen Hurts isn't going to be the easiest thing with your defensive ends. Like
did you see how much Detroit pressured Jalen Hurts all game long? Yeah, that's why he had to run and get 90 yards.
I was watching that game.
They gave up 35 points. That defense in Philly gave up 35 points to Detroit. I'm not discrediting.
I think Detroit has a really good offense.
Like us?
No, not like you.
So, come on, dude. I know you're trying to play devil's advocate here.
You're asking me.
But
I feel like Skip Bayless right now.
So, is this going to be a high-scoring game?
Let me think. I think so. Mid-20s, high 20s, low 30s.
Okay, so you have yet to give your pick. When you give your pick, I want you to predict a score.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Because you already know I'm rocking with the Vikes.
Yes, indeed.
I think it's going to be definitely a more high-scoring game than what we, more back and forth than what we had with the Packers.
What gives you faith that Kirk Cousins can perform in primetime?
Like I'm saying, dude, I'm not sitting here as a Vikings fan from the past. I'm sitting here like I'm a new person, like Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Like I'm new to the Vikings. Like this is a brand new feeling that I have with this team. It's just a different vibe. I think Kirk Cousins, this is even going back to his time in Washington. It's the most confident and comfortable he's playing this year. It's only been one game, but he's even in practice, the way he's talking in his press conferences, he is just in a whole different mindset. Like he's taking, I think what he didn't see too much dink and dunk last game. Like he's pushing the ball downfield. He's looking for those shots. And he's relying on his receivers to get open. And we have one of the best receiving threats in JJ, KJ, and Adam. So I think that I have confidence this time around that Kirk Cousins is going to play smart football, but also be willing to take those shots that he rarely seems to take in crucial moments. And I think he's got the receivers this time around in his career to really, this is what his 5th year in our offense now. So granted, it's a new system, but this is his 5th year with the team. He's been playing with these guys his whole time here. It's just it's a whole different vibe, man. You gotta believe in the confidence they're playing with. Like they are very confident and they know that they can win games. Look at how many games we were close in last year. I mean, shoot, we have not been a bad team for many years. It's just we've been off and on with Zimmer. It was a disconnect in that organization when him and Spielman were there. So I think these new guys coming in, changing the system up a little bit, 4-3 to 3-4, a more pass-oriented offense, letting them players be themselves. This is why we're dangerous this year because, number one, people are sleeping on us. Number two, these guys are playing freely.
You want my pick?
Let's go.
I got the Vikings. 27-23. Philadelphia will have the ball to end the game. And the problem with Philadelphia will be Hurts can't complete the passes that he needs to win the game. That's my prediction.
So, and that's funny because I predicted 27-23 against the Packers last week.
So maybe this is the game.
So yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, I'm not trying to get too overhyped, too overconfident with this team. I know what they've done to us in the past.
Last time you played them, what happened, by the way?
When did we play them last?
In the playoffs, I think.
Okay, we played them after that.
Did you?
Yeah. We went. I think it was the year after.
Did you lose by 30 again?
No, I think we won. I think we won. I think we won by 3 or 6 or something like that. But yeah, we went. Any Philly fan watching this is gonna make me eat shit, bro. Like, but you know what?
On the road in Philly is a tough place.
It's a very hostile environment. Like, don't get me wrong, but It is what it is. I just don't, like I said before, throughout the preseason or off season, even like Jalen Hurts has to go out there and prove it on a week to week basis that he is that guy for them. I think that he is still somewhat on a shorter leash than what most think. Mm-hmm. But week 1 was very encouraging. I think AJ Brown brings a whole different dynamic to that offense. Miles Sanders, he's just got, I don't dislike him. I think he's a good back. He just doesn't put the fear of God in me with his running ability. Like, he's not gonna break one off for 80 yards. He's a tough runner. But he's no AJ Dillon, he's no Aaron Jones, no Saquon Barkley, he's no Dalvin Cook. The one I fear running the ball is Jalen Hurts. So if you take Jalen Hurts and he has a huge game passing on our defense and a big, pretty solid game running, that's probably how we lose. If we cannot contain him and we leave him open to make those big plays downfield and take off with the ball and get crucial first downs at the right times, like, that's going to be the key.
See, if I were to be banking on Philly or choosing Philly, we both have to be banking on things that we really haven't seen before. Everything you just mentioned about Jalen Hurts and Kirk Cousins being able to make the deep passes when they matter, and being able to show up in prime time. So that's why it's a hard game to choose.
It is. But I do think yes, Philly has a strong defense. I get that, but they just, they might clean some things up this week where they tighten up a little bit. But you did still give up 35 points to Detroit Lions, who is not as prolific as our offense is. And so I'm not going to this game worried about our offense. It's more so I don't want to see Pat Pete get burnt anymore. I don't want to see the run defense give 6 yards per carry. That back end definitely has to tighten up for me. I mean,
you feel like you can stop Philly? They put up 38.
I think we can. I mean, regardless,
that much better than Detroit.
Regardless, I think it is. I have the feeling right now that people look at us and it's like, oh, it's just the Vikings.
That's everything I hear. They play great, but we know how the Vikings are.
And you know what?
Let's wait and see. It's the Vikings.
But that's music to my ears. This is the year that it's really music to my ears because you can't name. I mean, there's a couple teams out there who have I'd put a better duo as pass rushers out there, like Bosa and Mack. But
Cleveland probably.
But can you give me a handful of teams that are truly better than Z Smith and Daniil Hunter?
Raiders. That's probably it. 5.
I mean,
top 5.
And then, Dalvin Tomlinson and Harrison Phillips probably aren't the most elite guys up the middle, but they hold their own. They push people around. I think Eric Kendricks and Jordan Hicks in the middle, they're just two very, very good, solid linebackers that don't make many mistakes, can tackle. I do think we have to clean up some tackling stuff because we missed quite a few last game.
Yeah, you did. But nobody tackles in camp. I think that takes most
teams. And then Harrison Smith was flying around last week. Like,
yeah,
he was looking like kind of back to his. And that's the thing I was mentioning in the offseason. Like, Harrison Smith last year didn't look like himself. He looked like he was disinterested in the game. Like, and that's where I'm coming from with the whole Zimmer. There was something wrong there. They didn't want to play for him. They were tired of his shit. Like, there's a rejuvenated team out there with this new regime, and it's exciting. So, but regardless of all that, I do have the Vikings winning. I do think it will be a more prolific, high-scoring game than it was with the Packers. But I'm gonna still take my Vikes by 10.
27-17, 30-20.
31-21.
31-21. All right. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, that's it. Let's just have a fun week 2. Man, if you couldn't ask for a better week 1, we said that already. But
man,
if this is what the season's gonna be, bring that shit on because I'm ready for it.
Yes, indeed. Game 1, week 1, man. Game winners, last second plays.
Yep.
Couldn't ask for nothing better, like you said. Week 2, something I forgot to mention. our comeback player of the years face each other: Christian McCaffrey against Saquon.
That's gonna be. I mean, that would be a fun one.
Be a great
I do
matchup.
think that McCaffrey, because I don't think he had too big of a game last week. I think
his biggest play was on a fumble recovery.
Yeah, and he had the one touchdown, obviously, but
besides that,
it wasn't like he was putting up numbers like he usually does. So, and that's the thing. I do think that I picked CMC as my comeback player of the year. Obviously, you pick Saquon, but I have a sense that Saquon's gonna have the bigger day. So there you have it. I mean, like, share, comment, share the videos. Like, hey, we're here for the long haul this season, so got everything 2 videos twice a week with videos. Let's give us your predictions in these games as well, because I mean, we're having a little contest here with our record. I think I went 9. What'd I say? 9-6-1.
9-6-1,
and you went 11-4-1. So you got me this week, but hopefully a couple games shake my way this week, and I can get back in the running for this.
Hopefully not. We picked a lot of the same games though this week, so we'll probably be pretty even, no matter how it goes. But that's it though. Episode 9 in the books.
Until next time, bro.
Until next time.